Hi, this is Tony Guthrie. Thanks for joining me on this video. Now, about 8 years ago, I posted this video about how to do a sermon introduction or a speech introduction and how to grab people's attention using the power of story. And as you can see, the video has gotten over 5,000 views over the 8 years. But I've also noticed that YouTube is sort of retiring it. It hasn't gotten many views in recent days. And I think that's just the way the YouTube algorithm works. After a while, they just stop showing them as often. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to repost the video and then give an example from my own church of how to actually do it. So let's get into this video and then take a look at how I do the introduction myself as an example immediately following. There's one thing I really want you to focus in on, and that is how relaxed I look. Now, I'm not talking about in the video where I'm explaining the speech introduction. I'm wearing a hat. I'm obviously 8 years younger. I don't know why I was wearing a hat in those days. I've sort of gotten over that. But in the video that follows, the example that follows, I want you to notice how relaxed I am and how powerful being relaxed is when communicating, and how I'm not standing behind the pulpit, but standing in front of it. This conveys a connection to people. It shows a relaxed attitude and atmosphere. It relaxes the people and really just causes them to tune in and listen to the story that I'm getting ready to tell. And then after that video of me doing the example, I'll have a little bit of a follow-up for you. So let's get into it.
You know, when it comes to introducing your sermon or opening a public speech, this is the critical time. As a matter of fact, it's probably the most critical aspect of your speech or your sermon, because they tell us, and they are not wrong about this, in the modern age, you have about 2 minutes to grab and hold your audience's attention. Now, that's been true for decades, but it's especially true now that we live in the age where we all carry around one of these things, because as you look around, you'll see people having these all the time and looking on them at whatever interests them at the moment. And so your goal as a speaker or as a preacher, that one opportunity that you have to stand before them and share with them the vital information you are giving to them, your goal is to grab and hold their attention from the outset, from the beginning, from the opening, from the time of introduction. Because I know how we are as speakers and preachers. What we want to do is we want to get right into the stuff, and we want to start telling people all the things that we know, all the things that we have prepared for them to share with them. But if we don't grab and hold their attention, it really doesn't matter. They will never get that information. So I'm going to give you a really, really good tip here. If you want to grab and hold your audience's attention, whether it be a church congregation or just a speech in a business setting, go to the old standby that has worked since the dawning of man on the face of the earth, and that is utilizing stories. We still love stories. When we were children, we used to love our parents, our grandparents, our teachers tell a story. We loved reading stories or having a story read to us. Stories engage our mind because what we do is we think in pictures. And when we think in pictures, that works to the advantage of the speaker or the preacher. So when you open up your speech, just start sharing a story with them, and the people will immediately begin seeing in their mind's eye the things that you're talking about in the story. For example, if I say, the other day I was out by the beach walking along and a big red canary came and landed down in front of me, you're immediately seeing that. You're seeing me walking on the beach. You don't know what beach it is. You don't know where I am, but you have envisioned a beach in your mind. And then when I say red canary, which doesn't exist, by the way, but if I were to say that, and I did say that, then you know, then you would have pictured that in your mind, and you would have been even more engaged. See, the secret to story is to give vivid details, to draw your audience in as quickly as possible by engaging them with a powerful story. Now, of course, there are other things you can do. You can give shocking statistics or a news headline, something that people are interested in, but the old standby can never let you down. Now, don't tell too many stories about yourself. Tell true and accurate and vivid stories, vivid details Now, don't just say the other day I was at Walmart, but say the other day it was a rainy, dreary day. I had to get up and go to Walmart because there were some things that I just needed. I hated getting out, but it was time to go. And so I put my jacket on, I got in my car, and I made my way to Walmart. And while I was there, and when you do that, everyone is absolutely engaged. I hope this has been helpful to you. This is Tony Guthrie. All the best.
Years ago, back in the early to mid 2000s, I was a professor of preaching. Now you might wonder, how in the world could I be a professor of preaching when I don't do it that well, but that's what I was. I taught men and women how to preach. And this was at Luther Rice Seminary. And there was another professor that lived in the same neighborhood as me. And because of that, we oftentimes rode to the office together, to the school together. I'm standing in just the right place for the air to catch the microphone. So I'll back up just a little bit. And so we rode together quite a bit, and one morning he came to pick me up. It was his week to drive in, and when I got in the car, I noticed in the back seat was his little boy, 6 years old. His name was Benjamin. And I said, "Hey, Benjamin, what's happening?" He said, "It's all good." And then his dad said, "Hope you don't mind, but we've got to drop Benjamin off at school today." I said, "Of course not." So I said, "Benjamin, what you been doing, buddy?" He said, "Well, I'm now playing baseball." I said, "You are?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Are you a home run hitter?" He said, "Well, not me, but there's a guy on my team who hits a home run every time he gets up there. As a matter of fact, he hits the ball so hard that it knocks the cover off the ball." Now his daddy cut his eyes over. He's holding the steering wheel. Benjamin's in the back seat. His daddy cuts his eyes over me like, "I'm sorry about this." He didn't say it, but you could see it in his eyes, and you could read it, and of course I'm not going to take on the child and say, "What a bunch of nonsense." I just said, "Really, that must have been something impressive to see." He said, "Oh yeah, it's great. He does it every time." I said, "Man, I need to come to the game and see that myself." And so when we got to the school, his daddy, of course, walked him over to the door, and I stayed in the car, and his daddy knelt down on one knee, got down on his level, and you know what was said. Because he kind of put his finger in his face just a little bit, and I didn't read his lips, but I'm a dad. I had a little boy once. Still do, kind of. And I just know that he probably said something along the lines, "Now, Benjamin, when I get home, we're going to have a conversation about telling the truth." Now, when he got in the car and we started headed toward the office, he said to me, "Man, I'm really sorry about that." I said, "Man, don't be sorry. That's one of the fun things of having children. Their imaginations, their ability to embellish." I said, because that's all he was doing. He was just embellishing the story, making it more interesting for the listener. I said, I enjoyed it. I said, I hope that you don't punish him too harshly. I said, but I'll leave that up to you. We live in a world where a lot of people like to use the L word, lie. He's a liar. We hear that a lot, especially in politics.
Now, obviously, I don't share the video clip of me introducing the sermon to say that I'm all that. That was just an example of how I do it. And it's two things I want to point out to you. One, I've already mentioned, just how relaxed that I appeared and how relaxed that I was. I wasn't wooden. I didn't sound like I was trying. I was telling a story as though I were sitting in a restaurant with you over a cup of coffee, just as normal and natural as possible. I even had my hand in my pocket a great deal of the time, again, to show a relaxed approach that this makes the story far more believable. If you appear relaxed, then the story comes off as far more believable and people can take it in more. There's just a psychological reasoning for that. But the second thing I want you to notice is that you did exactly what the members of my church did. While I was telling the story,
You were seeing it in your mind. Now, you don't know who the professor was. You didn't know what he looked like. You didn't know what Benjamin looked like. But I promise you, you created both of those people in your mind. And because of that, that's how I know that you were engaged. That's how you know that you were engaged. And if you went right now from watching this video, you could tell this story that I just told as easily as I told it. You would just simply say it a little differently and say, you know, a professor friend of mine shared this story, and then boom, you would tell it exactly as it happened, because stories stick with us. We remember them very well. So I want to encourage you to learn to tell stories with a lot of detail. I'm not saying that you don't already know how to tell them, but notice all of the details that I put in there and making it more natural and relaxed. So put more detail, put more of a relaxed approach in your presentation, and you'll hold your listeners captive. Every member of my church was zoomed in on that. And when that service was over, many of them shared. That was a great story about Benjamin. I've had a similar experience in my own life. That's the kind of responses you want to get. Use story. It's powerful, especially when it comes to opening up your sermon and with the goal of holding people's attention. This is Tony Guthrie. Please be sure to subscribe and hit the like button and help me grow this channel to help as many preachers as I can become the best they can be for the glory of God. Thanks for watching.